My apologies, everyone. We did get disconnected for a brief moment, but we are back. We did have to establish a new feed. So just bear with me one moment as I get the link out to everyone else and share the live and get as many people to join as possible, because this is going to be an interesting conversation.
Can't get enough. The truth I ain't holding back. This ain't no bluff. You are deserving that. Sometimes it's rough. No, I ain't holding back, cause this is uncut. This is uncut. This is uncut. No, I ain't holding back. Sometimes it's rough. This is uncut. This is uncut. The truth you deserving that. This ain't no bluff. This is uncut.
Happy Wednesday, Turks and Caicos, and welcome to another episode of Uncut. And I thank you all for joining us this evening. And I know I had everyone waiting in suspense for the last few days about who our special guest would be, but Uncut had to come bigger and better. And we are giving you more than we promised. You are now getting two special guests tonight. If you follow our page on Instagram, you would know that we had a series of hints out there today, and there were many people guessing. If you don't follow our Instagram, go ahead on Instagram and follow Uncut649 so that you could join in on the fun the next time it happens. If you saw what was happening, I'm sure you would have loved to get involved, because it was just exciting to see so many people guess as to who would be on. So without further ado, I would like to announce our very first guest for this evening in the person of Mr. Ezra Taylor, who is the PDM campaign manager. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mr. Taylor.
Oh, it's certainly a pleasure to be in your company. First of all, let me say thank you for inviting me on. I know you might have had a few of our candidates on, and some would have been invited but couldn't make it because of scheduling conflicts. But
Yes.
Once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you, some of the PDM's plans and ideas. I know you will have some tough questions for me this evening, so it's a good thing I'm home, so I have anywhere to run, anywhere to go. So thank you for that, and congratulations on doing the show, stepping up to the plate, and becoming a part of the national conversation in terms of what happens in this country. And it's important that our young people like yourself get involved in the discourse of what's happening in this nation, because young people like to listen to other young people. So, congrats on that, and all the best going forward with your show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you here, and it's a pleasure to have so many politicians embrace the show and actually come on to the show, because a lot of times it's difficult to get a hold of you guys. So I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. With that being said, I know you have a lot to get done tonight. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Of course, we know that prior to being the campaign manager, you ran for elections in the constituency of 85, which is Leeward and Long Bay. Right. What made you transition to the campaign manager?
I love politics. I love being involved. I love serving my party and being given the opportunity to help them retain this government. And transitioning from frontline politics, and I wouldn't really call being the campaign manager anything less than frontline politics also, because for some reason you're the face of the party. You're very much involved in campaign strategy and organizing, and you're a voice for the party. So basically you're out front of the campaign more than some candidates at some points. So I like that political atmosphere. I like the fact that I can share the party's ideas and the party's platform with the country. And there's so many similarities with being a frontline candidate and being the campaign manager. So I enjoyed both. The transition for me is also an opportunity for me to grow as a politician and a future leader in this country. I don't think I'm done with frontline politics as yet. I'll just rest that there for now. But this cycle of elections give me an opportunity to see the election process from a different perspective and kind of absorb a lot of, okay, this is what you really need to be doing the next time you're on the campaign trail or you're on a ballot. So transitioning to this role has been a very educational and informative one, and you really get to see, how other candidates operating under pressure and under deadlines and the whole 9 yards. So it gives me an opportunity to tweak quite a bit of things if I decide I'm going to get into frontline politics again.
Definitely understood. What was your reason for choosing now to make that transition? Because usually persons would be completely done with frontline before they decide to transition to a position that's like a campaign manager or an advisor or anything of that sort. Why now?
Well, just like the PDM party, we don't do anything standard. There's no standardization. We pivot with what is required at the time. And at this time, it was strategically sensible for us to make this, for me to make this transition. It gives me an opportunity to grow, gives me an opportunity to work on some things personally and my personal development, which is going very well. So I like the idea of still being involved so intimately and being able to help make decisions and help the party, win at the polls on January 19th. So now, more than ever, was a really good time for me because there's so much to learn in this very period, this very election, which is so critical. And I've been able to absorb quite a bit, and I'm happy that I made that transition.
You said something that's so important. One of your key roles, or I shouldn't even say key, your role as campaign manager is to get your candidates elected.
Yep.
With that being said, if your candidates are successful in this election, are you going to hold them accountable when it's all said and done?
Well, we're holding our candidates accountable now because it matters now. And it matters on Friday, the 19th of February. Our whole campaign strategy has basically sent an internal message to our candidates that, hey, what you're doing here by putting your name on a ballot is asking people to come out and put confidence in you that you can get the job done. So that requires you being able to be confident in yourself, that you're being able to prepare yourself properly for this process. That requires you to pay attention and be nimble and be agile and be able to react to situations and really highlight your strengths and your leadership abilities and skills. So the candidates' feet are being held to the fire as we speak. And the closer we get to election day, the hotter that fire gets, because we are not allowing our candidates to make some of the mistakes we would have made in the past. We've learned quite a bit from our previous campaigns. As you would have seen, it's a very high level, informative campaign. It's issues based, it's record based, and it's future looking based. So it's all about our plans, our record, and where we've started in 2016, where we are now, and where we're headed in the next 4 years.
I totally understand. With that being said, the manifesto had a whole lot of awesome ideas in it. A lot of it was well received by the public, specifically e-governance, the technology side of it. Everyone seemed to jump on board with it. You you have been in a position where you ran frontline politics, so you understand politics pretty much better than most of us. Can you kind of give us a timeline and explain when can we expect for these things to happen? Is it in the next 2 years, or is it more closer to the end of the 4-year mark?
Well, I wouldn't specifically get into timelines for the next administration, which would be our party. That is something that most of these timelines are made and these policies are put into place at a cabinet level. That'll be a little above my pay grade. But what I can say is, particularly for e-governance, this isn't something that this government going forward is just going to get started with. If, a lot of our people would have been paying attention, we are now moving forward with real technological advances and reforms with the National Insurance Board. Right now, a tender probably closed about a week ago for $3 million for a brand new e-governance system for the National Insurance Board. So you can sit home, pay your contributions online, look at your statements, look to see if your employer is paying on your behalf. A number of initiatives that empowers the stakeholders from a national insurance standpoint. And let's look at APHIS. This is a process that allows our local immigration officials to have advanced passenger information prior to arriving in the Turks and Caicos. The finance department has been doing quite a bit in terms of e-governance as it relates to online payments. Some of it would have been pushed forward by this pandemic. And let's look at the customs process. This part of e-governance was in existence, for years. And these are things that the PDM government has always been behind: efficiency. And you could sit anywhere in the world and submit a customs declaration in the Turks and Caicos. So we've made some giant leaps forward already in terms of e-governance. And sorry, I guess I muted by mistake. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the government really hitting the ground running in terms of getting e-governance rolled out. It's a costly process, as we all know that technological advances, they aren't cheap. The skills aren't cheap. The labor isn't cheap. But what I like about having the e-governance ideas is the fact that this government is also looking at instituting coding for our young people. So not only will we build an e-governance platform, it'll also give us an opportunity to build the human capital to help make these things work and function.
I'm so glad that you mentioned the coding, because in the manifesto, under the coding section, there was a figure that seemed to be omitted where it said those jobs could earn between such and such dollars annually. Right. And there never seemed to be a public correction where everyone was able to know what those figures really were. Are you able to reveal those figures to us tonight?
Well, it's not a PDM based figure. It'll be an industry based figure. And if we look at the research in terms of what these jobs pay, you're looking between $60,000 to $80,000 annually. That is if you're working with an organization. Now imagine you having these technological skills and you're able to start your own tech business, or you're doing contracts locally or globally, because once you have technological skills, you're in demand everywhere in the world. And this pandemic has shown us how much we truly rely on technology and how much this Turks and Caicos need persons with those skill sets, more of them.
Yes, definitely. I totally agree. COVID has changed the way we live. Well, it hasn't changed because technology has been the way the world has been going for quite some time. But what it has done is it has expedited the process of getting to where we would have been in a few years. So that definitely is a plus. But thank you so much. So I see a few more viewers on. So for those of you who missed it, that figure for coding earnings, which is a global figure and not a PDM figure, is between 60,000 and 80,000 annually. So I hope that many more people learn more about this just because it seemed to be something that wasn't addressed. So thank you so much for addressing that, Mr. Taylor.
Oh, sure, no problem.
Of course, we know that millennials and Gen Zs, we don't like to read. We just don't like to read. Give it to us in a video, give it to us in a voice note, we will listen. With that being said, can you give us a very brief run through of the manifesto, key points that will grab young people's attention?
Of course, certainly I don't have any issue doing that. Some of the things that I think the young persons or the millennials would really want to pay attention to is this government is intending to invest $100 million in new business startups. This millennial generation, in my view, like to be their own boss. They like to be in charge of their affairs, and they like to take advantage of opportunities that present themselves. They're more educated, they're more impatient also, and they like to be cutting edge. And the PDM government understands that because, one of the things that we did when we first came to government is we sat down with young people and listened to what they wanted. And these are some of the things that they mention as the Premier and the Minister of Education went on their listening tours throughout the Turks and Caicos. So some of those things would be that $100 million that this government intends to invest in small businesses to give young entrepreneurs an opportunity, to make their own way in this economy. Certainly, you want to look at stuff like creation of 2,000 new jobs. Those are things that
rewind back before you move forward. Let's just rewind back to the $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
There were quite a bit of PDM candidates that also mentioned it, saying that it would be alongside the MSME program.
Right.
Of course, we know that the categories in the MSME program are very limited. Are they also thinking to expand those categories?
Of course, you would have heard our leader speak to that on a number of occasions. We understand that this economy is a fluid one. Things change and demands change quite often. It's a growing country with an array of different cultures. And when we have that melting pot, quite naturally, you're going to have people who are demanding services that they would have gotten at home fairly easily and fairly accessible to them. So definitely, we'll be looking at expanding what the categories are. The Premier has also shortened that process because, one of the things was the bureaucratic process in terms of getting to that grant. And that meant going to cabinet and waiting months and months before you could get a response. So now those requests for MSME applications, they're channeled directly to the Premier's office. They can have sight of them, approve them, and forward them on. And this shortens the time span in which people can have access to capital. Also,
what is the current average time span for that?
Well, persons I've dealt with waited up to 5-6 months. That's a half a year. Since the Premier's intervention, that would have been brought down to 2 months to 3 months. A quarter. These processes take time. You're dealing with funding, so there's always a dot your I's, cross your T's process. So definitely expansion, more things in the tourist-related sector. But that being our primary breadwinner at this time, as we step into diversifying our economy into more areas, that will certainly call for the MSME program to add in new categories if we're going to be diversifying. But let me add a couple of more things that I think that highlight, some of the things that the young people could pay attention to. Certainly the credit union legislation. And that is something that also opens up an avenue for our young persons, primarily civil servants. When this credit union operation gets rolling, gives them an opportunity to access funding for businesses and homes at very low interest rates, and also education. So that is something that should stick out to the younger people. There will be resources available for you in the future for you to have options. There's no more I'm not sure where I'm going to get the funding from or how I'm going to fund this dream. This government is creating avenues for the young people to look forward to, and I think that is certainly something that young persons also land and home ownership. I think that is very big on millennials' radar. This government intends to get the land portfolio back under a ministry. Now, there are constitutional negotiations that were ongoing. We've reached to a point where the UK government seems to be in agreement with putting this portfolio back under a minister. But the roadblock here, and I'm not trying to be facetious, the roadblock here is this was a bilateral negotiation, meaning the government and the leader of the opposition and the opposition had to be a part of these negotiations. That was the rules laid out by the UK government. We've received a response in relation to this land portfolio, but we can't seem to get the leader of the opposition to sit down and agree to get this done. The UK government is not willing to entertain the government alone in this process. So the PDM government will certainly address this matter as soon as we're the next government, and whoever the leader of the new opposition will be, or the leader of the opposition will be, we'll take that on. Home ownership is a huge thing for young millennials, and this is, very much on our radar. We've already created the housing department, and this will collaborate with getting our housing stock up from low to medium to high-end housing. So, these are things I think millennials are really, really concerned about. Ownership.
Definitely. Millennials are definitely concerned about our land. And just before you move on to the next point, because I know you have so many on your radar, because you guys were targeting the millennials and the Gen Zs. In my previous interview with Honorable Akira Mizik, she stated that there was some sort of constitutional negotiations going on, as well as a constitutional reform that could not be done right now at this time just because we're in an election. But she stated that the opposition as well as the government came to agreement in that, and now it was just COVID hit and stopped that process. Is the land situation a part of what is being taken to England?
Yes, but first let me correct what the Honorable Mizik would have said. The material fact that she would have stated is certainly incorrect. You would have seen a number of constitutional consultations going on throughout the Turks and Caicos on every island, and I had attended a few of them, and all the negotiations and all of the information was gathered. It was sent on to the UK. The government received a response. Okay, the government received the response. The Premier laid that response on the table in the House of Assembly. What is required is cooperation from the opposition. The opposition had put together a team, which I think included the Honorable Mizik, and she should have made it clear that they are the ones that's holding up the process. The government is ready to move forward. This is a priority for them. They understand that the young people in this country want to be able to sensibly apply for a piece of land and not stick their hands into a garbage bag. And we understand the urgency of this, but the opposition don't seem to understand the urgency of this. And, I hope they're not playing politics and don't want this to be an achievement under this government's tenure, but they're going to get it done anyway. So after February 19th, this is something that's certainly primary on the agenda for the opposition to sit down with us, conclude these negotiations, and let's respond to the UK and say, hey, this is what we want. This is what we are gonna agree to. So that is the facts.
Okay, so just to gain some more clarity on the situation. So it's not a case where COVID had helped the situation. You're claiming that it's a case where the opposition has actually halted the situation.
That's simply it. It's simply them not cooperating. Look at us now. We're having a conversation electronically. And the Premier and this government has been meeting with the Foreign Office virtually. So those communications, whatever needs to be sent to the United Kingdom goes as diplomatic mail. We could stick that in a diplomatic bag and it's in the UK in no time. So COVID is not the reason why. Cooperation is the reason why we haven't gotten to where we need to be with these constitutional negotiations.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. I'm sure my viewers appreciate that very much, because at this point, we, the public, need to now figure out what is truly going on, because we've heard his side, we've heard her side.
Right.
In the middle of it all is House of Assembly rackets hold the truth. So
it's simple.
So with that being said, I encourage everyone to continue to listen to House of Assembly, because that is the only way you truly know what is going on in your government. You cannot listen to what your friends say or what this one or that one say. You have to listen to it so that you understand it for yourself. So with that being said, Honorable Taylor, Mr. Taylor, I'm sure you know the type of person I am. I am going to do my research and figure out what is really going on, because everyone deserves to know the truth. And as a Turks and Caicos Islander, it's important for me to know, so I know who I have to put the pressure on as a voter.
Yes, trust but verify.
If your candidates are successful on Friday, are we still going to be able to hear from them, see them, call them, reach out to them? Are they still going to be reachable to the people? Are they still going to be able to listen to our concerns?
Well, of course. One of the things that's also part of this campaign strategy is, once we've won the government on Friday, what's next? Outside of what the plans are for governance, how do we continue to keep our hands on the pulse of what's going on in this country? People issues change daily. We now, we understand that governance is a busy profession, and it takes a lot of your time and it takes a lot of your attention. And, a lot of the population sometimes despise the fact that they can't reach out to their minister once they're elected. Things change drastically after an election. The country, as you know, we're going through a national pandemic, and this is going to require everyone's attention going forward on every aspect of governance. But this is why another one of the reasons why I got involved with the party in this capacity. I understood over the last 4 years that our public relations could have been a bit better. And I think that probably is the genesis of your question. But going forward, we're going to ensure that we allocate time to stay in touch with the voters. Now, we've done this quite a bit through our listening tours and through town hall meetings. This government was the most active in terms of engaging the public in town hall meetings. COVID came along, we were not able to conduct those meetings in person. I think we had 1 or 2 virtually, but this government always find time to do town hall meetings, whether it's quarterly or, halfway in the year. And those things will continue to happen. And you would have seen a rise in talk shows like yours. We're going to encourage our candidates to continue to engage shows like yours, so that information and what we are accomplishing gets out to the public, not just the public, but people in your age group who would probably be your viewers. And we find it imperative that this government continue to engage its citizens. Whether you support this party or not, you're a Turks and Caicos Islander, and you should know what's going on. So that means reinforcing our technological footprint in terms of getting that information out to people from the House of Assembly, ensuring that they're listening, reinforcing the strength of RTC signal so everyone can get it and it's reliable, so that public information is easily accessible. encouraging people to visit the, gov.tc. There's so much information on gov.tc. And we're going to keep our people engaged. We're going to keep our people informed. And we're going to find time to get out and get on the ground. Because people always draw this inference of, if you can find time during the campaign, you could find time during your term. But it's two different ball games, but we understand the dynamic, and we're going to ensure that we continue to have our candidates accessible to their constituents and that they are accountable. Accountability is big on our radar. So certainly we're going to have our candidates engaged.
Understood. I do think that at times, not at times, that our candidates do get busy, our MPs do get busy. Mm-hmm. So I totally understand that, but there's ways around that. You can have a connector's office, have someone in your office dedicated to that position. Right. There's definitely ways around it, because at the end of the day, if you could find me in the next 4 years, I should be able to find you in between those 4 years. So I totally understand that.
Yes.
Because it is a public position and people are looking forward to that.
Yes, I understand, and that interaction is very important. And certainly opening constituency offices is certainly a part of our strategy. I think you might have seen our handbook.
Right. Your comment about the constitutional reform has trickled in so many replies. I haven't had time to research it for myself, but I am receiving even email threads confirming that sometime in March, it was actually postponed due to COVID-19. And that is, of course, information that persons are providing. So I encourage everyone, if you are interested in that topic, do try to find the House of Assembly records. There are recordings out there. So I encourage you to look back sometime in March, because from what it seems like, yes, these emails are in March. So it would have happened sometime between the COVID-19 happening. So I myself am going to look back into the House of Assembly recording. So I encourage everyone else. And of course, I will share my findings with you guys. So I hope you're as interested in it as I am. Moving on from that topic, of course, Turks and Caicos is very small. People talk. Everyone has something to say. The question that everyone wants to know, are you vying for the position of appointed member?
Well, there is absolutely no reward that I'm seeking for assisting my party. My role as a PDM is to help the PDM party retain the government. That is a part of the PDM's constitution. And I am living up to the constitutional responsibility of being a PDM. I am duty bound to do that. I expect no reward for my actions. I expect no reward for what I offer to my party. And so I'm not in this for anything other than for our government to retain governing this country.
Totally understand. Thank you so much for everything you have shared with us tonight. We definitely appreciate it. And my last question to you is, which I asked to all of my political guests, why should we vote for your candidates? Why are your candidates the best?
Well, you would have been paying very close attention to this campaign. You would have heard the issues from our campaign team. You would have heard the issues from each and every one of our candidates. You would have seen their performance, some of them in the House of Assembly over the last 4 years. You would have seen the record that this government was able to achieve and accomplish over the last 4 years, in spite of a pandemic, in spite of a couple of hurricanes. This government was able to deliver for its country in so many ways. A trade school for our young people going forward, so we could build a human capital in this country. You would have seen the capital investments on Salt Key, You would have seen the capital investments on South Caicos. You would have seen the capital investments on Grand Turk and throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands. You would have seen the increase in scholarship funding for our young people. I could go on, but I know your show is only an hour and a half. So that just speaking about our record alone would take the entire show. And I wouldn't want to do that to your next guest. But I know I poked the bear and you'll probably be getting some interesting stuff next. But this party is a people-centered party. We understand the dynamics of what our people need. We are a listening government and we are accountable. Fiscal responsibility is one of the tenets of this government. We ensure that we spend wisely, that we save wisely.
You mentioned the trade school. Where exactly is the trade school? Like how far are we with it? Is it finished? Are we ready to go?
Mm-hmm. The physical location is just across from Abundant Life Ministries. You know, they would have had a school at some point in the past. The government acquired that school and it's being converted into the trade school. A dean has already been hired, as well as a number of other personnel that's going to be based at the trade school. There's currently a tender out, or it should have been closed already, for the retrofitting of the trade school. So we're talking a matter of months. So in the next term, we'll probably be looking at about 6 months. We should really see some legs getting under this trade school and people being able to enroll and uplift themselves. But back to our candidates. We believe in excellence. We believe in having the best for our people. We believe in educating our people and giving them an opportunity to advance themselves. And by us talking about diversification of this economy, we're talking about ownership. We're talking about building wealth. We're talking about home ownership. We're talking about being able to apply for a piece of land and build your first home and have some pride and be able to put your family under a roof that you own. We're talking about credit unions, giving people an opportunity to finance their dreams. We're talking about $100 million that this government is seeking to invest in small businesses. We believe in the best for our people. And we've given this country, and we're giving this country the best leadership that is nimble, that has its hands on the pulse of the wants and the needs of this nation. And we're going to go forward with our plan boldly. And we are going to achieve those things that we have in our agenda, barring any acts of nature. And with God's help and the help of all the citizens of this country, we need you to be engaged. We need you to understand what's going on in your country. We don't need you to be standing on the sidelines and watching, but be a participant in the growth of this nation, because you're going to have a government that is going to provide the opportunities for you. We need you to seize those opportunities. And that is why you should vote for the PDM and the PDM candidates. We believe in a future that is brighter, that builds wealth, that gives you assets, and for you to be a part of this dynamic economy that we have. We have young people that are engaged currently. We need more. We're going to continue to develop you. So that is why you should vote for the PDM. We have a plan, and we have leaders that can carry that plan out.
Yes, I totally understand. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Taylor. We really appreciate it. You touched on so many important issues. And I encourage everyone to go out February 19th and vote. Do not log off just yet. I promised you 2 guests, and I am certain that he will bring the fire, just as Mr. Taylor brought the fire.
Oh, yeah.
So with that being said, our next guest will be Mr. Jazz Walkin, who will be joining us very shortly. And I just encourage everyone to go out and vote on February 19th. Take your mask. Make sure you have your 2 IDs, one of those being your status card. Make sure you have a hand sanitizer just so that you're safe during the process. Wear your mask properly. Underline, highlight, bold, italics properly at all times. because we want you to be safe, and it is everyone's democratic right to vote. So yes, COVID patients will also be able to vote. So be as safe as possible. Adhere to the time slots. Please adhere to the time slots. They're there for a reason. On the island of Providenciales, I'll just touch on Provo since it's the biggest island that we have. The time slot is, I believe, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. is elder people. Um, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. would be persons not affected by COVID or in quarantine or in self-isolation. And 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. will be COVID patients, those in self-isolation, and those who have possibly been in contact with COVID patients. And I'm assuming, which I don't know for sure, the reason for that 2-hour time gap is for those who are not affected by COVID patients to clear out before the COVID patients actually come. If you look at the schedule, there's a 2-hour time gap. So do not play it close. Try as much as possible to get out there. Thank you so much, Mr. Taylor, and we hope to have you back very soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And once we have passed this election and we are the government again, I'll be happy to come back and speak with you and talk about our plans as we achieve them and our milestones to ensure that the public is well informed. And it will be remiss of me to leave your show and not ask you for your support on the 19th for the People's Democratic Movement.
Thank you so much for joining, Mr. Taylor.
Yeah.
My support is definitely reserved. No one knows who I'm voting for the mere fact that it is my civic right to hold that to myself. However, I am going out to vote. Rest assured that I will be out to vote. I don't even think my mommy knows who I'm voting for, to be honest. So that should tell you something. If my own mother and I haven't had that conversation, I am definitely not having that conversation with the whole of Turks and Caicos. But I will definitely be up to vote.
All right. Thank you for having me, and don't stop the movement.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Just before we have our next guest join us, I have some very interesting information that I stumbled across today, and I thought it very, very important to share with you all, and I hope that you guys spread the word. So in 1976, we had our first elections. 45 years ago, Turks and Caicos had its very first elections. When I looked at the data, it seemed pretty normal because you saw PNP, PDM, a few independents. When I looked at it more closely, I realized there were actually successful independent candidates. And this data was actually provided by Dr. Carlton Mills in one of his books, just so you guys know. And there were only 2 in that year. There were 2 successful independent candidates. Currently, Turks and Caicos, we like to say that we are a party nation. And so, and one moment, let me just let our guest in. Bear with me for a moment. Awesome. So he'll be joining us shortly. And those 2 candidates were in the name of Mr. Liam McGuire. I'm sure if you guys watched Jackie's live a few weeks ago, she would tell you how his slogan was McGuire will take you higher. Coincidentally, Mr. McGuire, Honorable McGuire, actually ran against my grandfather, Mr. Edward Henschel, in the community of South Caicos. And the next independent to have won his seat would have been Mr. I want to get the name correct. Bear with me one moment. The next candidate to have done this would have been Mr. Daniel Williams. And this would have taken place in the constituency of Bottle Creek. And this is very significant for us because I decided, okay, I want to see if there were actually more candidates who were successful as independent candidates. And when I looked at the data, I realized in 1995, Honorable Norman Saunders was actually successful as an independent candidate. I know a lot of you know him to be associated with now the PNP, which would have been the PNO back when he would have ran. But he actually won a seat as an independent candidate, which he also won seats as a PNO and PNP candidate. So that is very, very important information that I thought good enough to share with you all, because there's hope for our independent candidates, even though we haven't seen it in my lifetime, possibly in your lifetime, it is actually possible. So I hope to bring cheer to you, independent candidates, because we value you, we appreciate you. Something else that I found very, very intriguing with this data is that the three persons who actually won their independent seats won it in constituencies, not only in constituencies, won it in Caicos Islands. They won it in South Caicos and Bottle Creek. And that just shows that the smaller communities were actually ahead of their time. They were ready for the change. With all of that being said, I am ready to welcome our guest, Mr. Jazz Walkin. Jazz, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good night.
Awesome. So happy to have you. You look like you're beaming, you're glowing.
Listen, I hope I look that way because trust me, I'm tired, but I have 2 more days to finish this mission and then on to the next chapter. So I'm glad that I don't look how I feel, but I gotta keep up the energy.
Awesome. So my very first question to you, Jazz, is we all know that you ran last election and you unfortunately you weren't successful. After that, you went on to be the president of the Civil Service Association. What made you leave the Civil Service Association and align yourself with PNP?
Oh, you ain't give me no time to even ease into this.
No, once that, we jump straight into it.
Um, we're in the hot seat. It's been such a long time since I've been interviewed. I almost feel nervous. But, well, Andrew, first let me say thank you for inviting me. I was beginning to feel a little bit unimportant on your list. I said, everybody getting to be on cut. And I girl, well, Andre even sent me a little invite. I know all of that. But anyway, but I'm happy that to be here. And congratulations on your show, by the way, and the work that you've been doing the last couple of months. I'm so proud of you. And I just want to say that the question you asked me is one at large candidate said a couple of days ago on another show. That's a deep question. Let me be very candid with you. First of all, it was not an easy decision by no means. It was an emotional decision because I had personally, whenever I'm doing something, Balendra, I always put my all into it. I like to see things through. I like to finish what I started. And when I took on the responsibility or was elected as the CSA president, um, I did not have any intention in my foresight to be involved in this current general election. Obviously, being a former candidate in the 2016 election, a lot of persons would have, contacted me and asked me, would I be running again as independent, or would I be running with a party? And I told them no. Even before I became the CSA president, I was beginning to realign my life and restructure my life, trying to rebuild, because when you run for office, especially when you're a civil servant and you have to leave the government and leave the public service to run for office, and you're not successful, you can have, it's like starting over, And I had to start over. Fortunately for me, I was able, my qualifications and credentials and my experience allowed me to regain employment. I interviewed for a job, very important job to me, because some people may not know this, but the only thing bigger and more difficult than leaving the post of CSA president was actually leaving the post of special needs education officer, because I was building a foundation that was never there when I was first hired. So that was the toughest decision, because as an advocate for special needs kids, I was that voice in the government, that voice in the Department of Education, constantly championing their cause and fighting for funding. And Belendra, I know I could have been more harsh and vicious on this current administration in regard to the neglect of special needs, but I didn't want to politicize it, because those children still need advocacy and they still need the attention they need. But let me say this to you. One of the things that drove me, or that encouraged me, or allowed me to make the decision to move on into the role I have now, was that I had done everything possible within the 3 years in that role to bring awareness to that role without hardly any governmental support, even though I was hired by the government to do it. I worked 3 years without a designated budget for that program. Um, Imagine being promised $15,000 to operate on and not even receiving that. Then imagine being promised $40,000, so you feel yay, out of a 200 and something, almost $300 million budget, and you can't even get $40,000 towards a program that helps to create access for children with special needs. So when you combine my frustration, there were many proposals that I had submitted to my directors, to my bosses, that never even received the acknowledgement. There were many letters, many policy proposals, just trying to get that program off the ground. I achieved quite a few milestones with my hardworking teachers, but I can't deal with dormancy, Valendra. I can't deal with stagnation. I am a fighter. I am a passionate person, and I like to see results. So I was really feeling frustrated with not getting to move that program the way it needed to move, with the lack of support needed. Then there was the CSA part of it, where I began to build a foundation as CSA president, where I was getting the framework, because I believe in foundation. Listen, a lot of times we try to build a house without a good foundation. When I became the CSA president, I campaigned on structure, I campaigned on accountability, and I campaigned on cooperation, progress through partnership. The structure and foundation that I campaigned on, my administration laid within the first 100 days of my administration as CSA president. I had delivered on 100% of the objectives in regard to laying the foundation, which was getting the CSA Constitution ratified for the first time in over 40 years, Walandro. This organization did not have a ratified constitution. I also spearheaded the first official installation ceremony for the executive members. The finances of the institution was dormant, because the former executives had been non-active, and it was just dormant there. And my executive body got ready to work on getting it up off the ground. The public relations was improved significantly. We've made many inroads with the deputy governor's office. I know a lot of civil servants may have expected a combative approach from the general, but I learned that a lot of times the pen is mightier than the sword, and I began to learn about the civil service. My vice president, who's now the current president, DeMarco Williams, we made a great team, because what we did was I focused more on the policy and the public relations aspect of the civil service association, and he focused more on the day-to-day complaints and grievances with civil servants. So he really has to be given a lot of credit for having my back and dealing with civil servants directly and representing the issues. And so when last year came, I started this answer taking long, but I'm just trying to build the backdrop to how I got to where I am now.
Go right ahead.
Yeah. When last year came, I was approached by the Progressive National Party. I've always had a good relationship, at least for the last 4 years, with the current leader of the PNP. Honorable Charles Washington Music. He's been someone that I've admired greatly over the years, and he and I have always talked about, what we want for our country. And he, from immediately after the 2016 general election, he reached out to me and he said, Jazz, I see a lot of potential in you. You have a contribution to make to this country. And I feel as if you owe it to yourself and to your country to get involved in frontline politics again. Don't let the loss in 2016 as an independent candidate be your last attempt in politics. So I said to him, I appreciate that and so on. But as I mentioned earlier, I made it unequivocally clear to anyone that had approached me that Jazz Walkin will not be a candidate in the 2020 or 21 general elections. That was not happening. And up to last year's summer, it was, I didn't even see myself being involved in this election period. But when I saw what this country was facing with Landra under this current PDM administration, when I saw where we were about to head, and I realized that we needed a change in direction, when I also saw that a leader who I have admired, who I have looked up to, reach out to me and ask for my help in helping to bring his party, his organization, to a place where we can possibly win a general election. I first had to take stock of what I was giving up, what I was leaving behind. It was not easy because I knew that I would face a lot of criticisms, but from people who don't really know me. I believe fully in the agenda that I had set out to accomplish with the CSA. I was passionate and still am passionate about the civil service. And I'll tell you something. A lot of what the Progressive National Party has put to the forefront of its first 200 days agenda, I'm proud to say that it is because of my constant advocacy to let the leader of the PNP and the next premier of this country know that you will take care of the civil service, you will deliver for them, because I did not leave the civil service because I stopped believing in what they deserve. I moved on to this role to be a stronger advocate for them. At the same time, in the citizens contract, you would have read specifically the party's agenda for special needs. It has been a big part of the PNP's campaign because, believe me, if they believe that I advocated for the PNP to be elected come February 19th, they have never seen me advocate yet for special need education in this country. I'm going to give them some time to settle into office, but let me tell you this. I am going to continue to fight for it. So when I was approached by the PNP to take on this role as a campaign manager, I had to do a lot of praying, a lot of searching, because I knew that I was not only aligning myself with a political organization publicly, but I was also giving up my independent candidacy and my independent. When I say candidacy, I was giving up my independent persona in terms of being that straight down the line, straight shooter when it comes to political opinion. And don't get me wrong, you can ask the Progressive National Party. I still straight down the line, straight shooter. It's just that they have been to the benefit of my political advocacy. So I came to that decision based on what I want to see for Turks and Caicos Islands, based on what I believe we were going wrong, in the wrong direction, based on my confidence and faith in the Honorable Charles Washington Music as a leader and what he wants for this country, and based on my belief that, Walindra, if the millennials and the Gen Zs want to see the type of country they desire, we've got to be a part of this process. And I said to myself, Jazz Walkin, a major political party in this country has seen something in you that they think can help them become the government, and they're placing you in a role as national campaign manager to lead their campaign and to strategize and to help bring home victory, not just for the party, but for what you believe for the country. It was very hard to say no to. I actually said no once or twice.
With that being said, how open is the party to getting young people involved in the process?
I would say the party is very open. And let me say this.
Why would you say that? Give us your reasons. Give us your experience.
Well, I would start with the decision to to bring me on board as this campaign manager. I don't represent the traditional politician. I don't represent what we call the old guard. Plus, I was a former independent candidate. I ran a very fierce independent campaign against the Progressive National Party 4 years ago. Believe me, I don't think it was an easy decision just to say, "Hey, Jazz, come on board." And why I'm referencing that is because that willingness to work with people who may have in the past been opposing you or not serving your interests, it showed me that this is a party that actually can accept you for who you are. And there have been a number of young people who have contributed significantly, Walendra, to this Progressive National Party current campaign. A lot of them behind the scenes, and they probably will never get the credit publicly, but they have been instrumental. And even in terms of the framework of the citizens contract, I can guarantee you that there have been a wide scope of consultation with millennials, with young people, and getting them to understand that, listen here, this is about us. And a lot of times too, I don't want to sound forceful, but we got to push our way in the door too. Listen, it's not just enough to vote for a party and say, I'm a PNP or I'm a PDM. But what exactly makes you a supporter of that party? What role are you playing? Why do you believe in the institution that you support? And are you able to defend this organization to someone who asks you, well, why should I vote for the PNP? Why should I vote for this party? So there's some roads to go. Don't get me wrong. They have some roads to go. And I can see where the crack is opening up quite a bit to invite even more young people on board. But I definitely will say to young people in this country, you might be surprised how much you enjoy getting involved in politics. It may surprise you. It's not as mundane and I into that. I don't give it a chance.
Yes, definitely. Something that has been in the air for quite some time, and a burning question that people do want to know: are you vying for the position of appointed member for the PNP if they are successful in this elections?
Oh Lord. That's such a funny question, because it's been a conversation that people have been bringing up and guessing and asking me. Walendra, no, the only position that I have been focused on since taking this job has been the national campaign manager. From the very first onset, when people come and they ask me about it, and there were so many different postings from fake accounts trying to, I would say, muddy the waters and assuming that there's some secret deal or some secret handshake or some secret promise. There is none of that. The Progressive National Party Constitution clearly outlines how they select the appointed member. And it's funny enough, I haven't read that section as yet, but I do know that I do know. No, I haven't read it. I understand that it is a vote. It is a process where the NGC selects from persons who are vying, and they make a selection. But no, I have not ran two campaigns in this election. I've ran one campaign, and that campaign is for the Progressive National Party to become the government of this country. So I say to people when they ask me about my future, which I find a lot of people seem to be interested in. I didn't know that my future was so important in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I say to them deep down inside that I do not know honestly what my next chapter will be. I don't know. It's a little bit nerve-wracking because I'm a person that loves to plan for the future. But I do know that I know who holds tomorrow. I know who holds the future, and I know who holds my hand. I can promise them that whatever my next role will be in the Turks and Caicos Islands, that I will still be the general. I will still hold the government's feet to the fire, and I will hold Honorable Charles Washington Mizik and his entire administration accountable for the pages in that citizens contract. So that is one commitment that TCI can expect from me. Who don't like it can have to lump it, because this is about country for me. I love this country, and I love it more than I love the PNP or any other organization. That's one commitment they know they'll get from me.
Awesome. With all of that being said, it is often said that PDM and PNP are systematically the same party. So what makes PNP different? Why should voters vote for PNP?
As a person who have been involved in both organizations during my lifetime, I will say this to you. Political parties have a lot of similarities in regards to some of the nuances and some of the, characteristics, so to speak. Ideologically speaking, I can't sit here and tell you there's a grave difference in what they believe in terms of what we need as a country, because I know you've interviewed several persons in this country over the last couple of weeks, and it's all starting to sound similar, right? It's starting to sound the same. So I often say to people, the difference between, this is from my experience. Let me start from before I get to government. Let me start from involvement. I was the same person when I was a supporter of the People's Democratic Movement. I never hide my political voting record or history, because that is my right as a citizen. I have a right to change my mind. I was one of the die-hardest supporter of the Blue Party. I when I say, even if I could vote, I loved their message. I loved the Black Power movement and what they stood for and all of that. What I found out when I got involved at the party level was that a lot of times in political parties, when you come inside and you bring your fire and your passion, you sometimes frighten certain people who feel as if certain positions and certain stakeholders, they should have certain stakeholders in the organization, and so you're not easily accepted. I found that one of the challenges that I had remaining a supporter of the People's Democratic Movement was that, well, if you and I say we believe in the same thing, but we see two different ways to approach it, that don't make me a bad guy. There's no need for you to push me or to undermine me in your attempt to get what you want. So I realized that some organizations, they give birth to babies, but then they abort them. So when I realized that I was not going to get to be myself in the People's Democratic Movement, when I realized that perhaps they did not know me as well as I thought they did, I realized that I needed to move on, and I moved on. I value all of my convictions and all of my experiences during my years supporting that party. You may have heard me say that I almost was a candidate for that party in 2012, but they changed their mind, and that was their right. I'm not bitter about it, but I moved on, and I don't regret moving on. I know why I was a supporter when I did, and I know why I was an advocate when I did. But when I realized that I needed that I had outgrown the ideology, I had outgrown what they would have expected of me. There are times where when sometimes you outgrow an organization, and let me say for the record, people say, oh, you jump ship. No, I didn't jump ship. I didn't jump from PDM straight into PNP. I made sure, gave myself some time in the wilderness to figure out if I even want to mess with this party stuff anymore. Thus the reason of 2016 independent candidate run. Because I said, Jazz, I will not allow another political organization to deny me the opportunity to fight for what I believe in this country simply because you want somebody else on the ballot paper. So I said, I ain't asking PDM nor PNP nothing in 2016. I don't do this my way. If TI people want me, they will vote for me. If they don't want me, they will vote for the other guy. And in the words of Hubert Ingram, if the people that want you, they will vote for you. They ain't vote for you, came behind home. I came right behind home. And the PNP, I'm bringing this home. What I have found to be the strength of the Progressive National Party over the other party, my experience is that the Progressive National Party is not a perfect party. No party is. It has had its challenges like every party, and it has some of the same nuances of the PDM. But Walendra, I love the PNP for allowing jazz to be jazz. They are in the PNP, and sometimes it works to our detriment. We are independent thinkers, sometimes too independent. But that's not about the PNP. You can think for yourself in the PNP. You can be yourself. And sometimes when I listen to PNPs, when they are doing an X-ray assessment of the PNP party, when they finish, I just wonder, are you a PNP? And then they say, yes, I'm a PNP. But that's how they critique the party. They critique, you ask the PNP candidates, you have a hard time convincing of, you have to earn your vote as a candidate of the PNP. They make you work for it, and I think it's great. It's great for our democracy, and it's great for our institution, because we expect our candidates to have a certain caliber. We expect the people that are part of our organization to speak your mind, voice your concern, because in a room where there are people afraid to voice their opinion, you end up with a Charlene Cartwright type government, and you don't want that kind of government. Yeah, somebody. I just said you can edit that one out later. But anyway, you need people to be themselves. Now, when we look at government, the difference between the PNP and the PDM and government, Walendra, the PDM and government, they are very good in opposition. I think they were designed perfectly for the opposition. That fighting, represent the, showing you what is wrong and what could be better. They are very good at that. When you give them power over the last 44 years in this country, when you have given them power, you find that they are clutches of the ball, I call it, of the bat. Our Deputy Leader E.J. Sanders did an analogy. I just love it. When you give the PDM the country to run, they hold it's like a bat. They go to the base and they hold on to the bat, and the ball is coming. And they don't want to swing because they don't want to strike out. So they just hold the bat and hope that they don't make any mistakes, hold the thing together, don't want to make decisions, don't want to spend the money, don't want to take risks. Well, under a government has to take risks. A government has to make decisions. A government has to decide to take risks on its people. The PNP, they're going to take risks. They're going to swing for the fences. They're going to strike out. Sometimes they strike out and you wonder, like, oh boy, how we can get back. But they bounce back. And at the end of the day, you can look in the country and you can see evidence of a progressive government. And at the end of the day, I know some people will stay PDM, some will stay PNP. My decision to support the Progressive National Party is based on the clear evidence that this country progresses far more under a Progressive National Party than under a People's Democratic Movement. And I will not use this to do any more campaigning for the PNP, but you asked the question, so I had to take the opening.
No problem. We're back to another PNP question, because of course the reason why you are here tonight is not because you're Jazz Walkin. It's because
I was thinking that I was.
It's because you're PNP campaign manager.
Wow. I feel so lied to. I feel lied to. I feel as if you set me up. All right. No problem.
I will invite Jazz Walkin back onto another episode, but tonight is all about Mr. Campaign Manager.
All right. I hear you.
With that being said, your opponents oftentimes speak about the previous administration, which was suspended, had the Constitution suspended, and all of that. What is the difference between then and now?
Well, I would say this, as I mentioned, every political party over the last 40 odd years in this country has had its history of people who come and go. I say to people of this country, and I mentioned the whole point of there have been times where PNPs have struck out, Every person that put themselves up for political office will end up in a political party. What they do after they get elected, it affects the country as well as their legacy. Every individual who was a part of any administration in the Progressive National Party, whether in 1980 when the PNP first became the government, or in 2003 or 2007, every one of those individuals have to give an account for their service or their record to this country. I would say to people in this country, listen, whether you supported the former PNP administration led by Honorable Dr. Michael Eugene Mizik or not, the evidence of the work and the progress that they did as a government is undeniable. Whatever your views are on the collapse of that administration and whether your opinion on it is justified or not, you're entitled to your opinion. But what I will say is you have to look at who's on the ballot. This is my question. You have to look at who's on the ballot and make a decision based on who is currently seeking your vote. At the end of the day, because I've had strong opinions, personal opinions of quite a few politicians on both sides of the aisle, and a lot of times we only talk about the politicians from the PNP in the 2009, 2010 administrative collapse because it was public and that's the one that everybody knows about. We don't know a lot about the other failures from the other side, perhaps because it was more discreet, But at the end of the day, as I said before, judge the man that is standing before you. Judge the man that is standing before you. Decide for yourself if that's a group of people that you want to proceed with. And the last point is this. Well, I refuse, and I said this during a campaign speech in North Campus. I refuse to believe that we as a country can hold a small group of people hostage or hold a whole country hostage because of decisions made by a few people. Deal with it, but do not try to punish this country because of your opinion on what you believe took place. And at the end of the day, I will hope that we be fair. And my mommy always said to me, Jazz, please do unto others as you want done unto you. People think about us what they are themselves.
Definitely. What can we expect when or if your candidates are successful on Friday? Can we expect for them to still be accessible to us? Will we still be able to hear from them, see them, reach out to them? Will the PNP still be active and on the scene?
Well, the answer to that question, if Jazz Walkin is still alive after Friday the 19th or on the 20th, they will be active and alive. Because as I said to you before, I intend to hold their feet to the fire. When I came on board as the national campaign manager, before I came on board, I asked the surrogates of the Progressive National Party on a numerous occasions, are you sure you all want this? Are you sure you want to deal with my personality? Because I ain't easy. Well, I believe that the Progressive National Party, when it becomes next government of this country, understand what is at stake. It understands that the barriers that we broke to get to where we are now, we need not let those barriers be built up again. Did we reach everyone that we needed to reach? Probably not. Did we convince all of the Gen Zs and the millennials that this is an organization that they can trust and go forward with? No, we did not. Because the other side have their Gen Zs and millennials too, And the thing is about this, we want to engage them as well. Not simply because we want their support, but because what we want for TCI is bigger than just supporters of the PNP. It's for the nation in general. So you can expect a Progressive National Party to stay active. You can expect the apparatus of that party to stay involved. And you can expect a Progressive National Party government to communicate to the people of this country what it is doing, what the vision is. We hear, I think you would have heard the leader of the PNP talk about the Freedom of Information Act as a part of the first 200 days agenda. We want people to know what their government is doing. We want our people to know what is going on in the country. So expect an active government, expect a government that is talking to its people, expect a government that is answering questions, and yes, you can expect members, the elected members of parliament from the Progressive National Party, to still be accessible. And if they are not accessible, you call me and I'll get to them.
Okay, there you have it, folks. If you can't reach your MP, reach out to Jazz. Jazz will reach out to your MP for you.
I feel like that one may come back to haunt me. But yeah.
Let us know why we should support your candidates. Why are your candidates the best out of the bunch?
I'll go back to my previous statement about, first of all, the organization that they have decided to be a part of. Willandra, no man is an island to himself, much less a woman. All right? We have to continue to understand that the work of government is not a one-man or one-woman show. It's teamwork. All right? And I want to say to you right now, I heard a lot of people during the even before the campaign kicked off, making a comparison between the Progressive National Party candidates. When at that time, we didn't know who the PDM candidates were, because most of them just come out the woodwork a couple of weeks ago. But anyway, we were making our candidates were out there for almost 2 years. They were ostracized, they were critiqued, they were examined. I think people have had an ample opportunity to make up their mind on the Progressive National Party candidates. But what I am confident in is I have seen each of the 15 candidates of the Progressive National Party. I've seen them grow. I've seen them grown. I've seen them develop and mature into confident individuals. And I've seen a side of them that many voters would not have seen. And that is, I've seen the actual person. A lot of times when you put yourself as a candidate, you only see the candidate. You only see the person standing up asking you for their vote. You don't see or talk to the person that has a family, that has a responsibility, that is trying to meet the needs of several persons at the same time. You don't see the person that is extending themselves resource-wise to people who may come back 6, 7 times again for the same help, but they're still trying to meet their needs. You don't see the person that, when you have to correct them about something, they say, okay, I'll work on that, or willing to pick up a teammate, and I get to see that. And a lot of my reservations, a lot of my concerns about the caliber and the quality of my candidates, it was erased because I have had the chance to work with them. So I can say to the people of this country, the PNP has the better slate. The PNP have character. We have real people. We have people who come from communities that we live in. We have people who have made sacrifices to be a part of a campaign in tough economic times. This was a tough year for TCI, Belendra. I've seen these candidates gone above and beyond, and I'm not just saying, I'm telling what I've seen, above and beyond. Because why? Because they want to help. And it can't just be about the vote. Because I'm telling you right now, some of the voters ain't easy. I'm going to say it. I'm trying to make y'all mad. But some of the voters are not easy. TI people could be good disgusting when they're ready. I'm a TI, so I know I could be disgusting. So I've seen their character and I've seen it. I also like the fact that it's a mixture of candidates. They come from different backgrounds. We have persons who have been teachers, educators. We have construction workers, contractors. We have persons that have worked in the hospitality sector. We have former civil servants. We have lawyers. We have economists, finance persons. We have persons who have extensive background in technology, in IT, ICT. We have builders. We have pastors. We have lab techs. We have a mixture. We have, and you know what we have that I love? We have community involved people. People who not just have built and built out themselves, but they have also been involved in their community. And you know what we have? We have a captain who trusts his team. This is why Texas Caicos Islands really lack a good government come the 19th of February, because they know what they're going to get from a Charles Washington Mizik government. They know that Honorable Washington Mizik has not held his candidate's hand all the way. You have seen press conferences without him. You have seen shows where his candidates speak and don't defer the question because they ain't sure what the leader would say. You have seen candidates differ in opinion, even on a policy. And I love that because it says that he trusts his team. I remember when the Citizens Contract launch. It was a big day for the party. It was the launch of our official policy document that we are sending out to the voters of this country. And the leader of our party, he could not make it, and nevertheless, he still was comfortable knowing that he had a team that was capable of leading the way. And I look at that day and I remember, he was texting me back and forward and making sure. I said, Mr. Leader, we got this. We just, we got this. That's the kind of leadership that they're gonna get a premier who has a cabinet that is competent, a cabinet that you can trust to make decisions, and they're gonna get candidates who, if they make a mistake, they're not afraid to correct it. And they know that they're dealing with a progressive National Party voter base who will let you have it. We ain't those supporters who the whole ship to be sailing through the reef and we still, let's go. No. We will let you know. Pull up. What they say in the club? Pull up, selector. Come. Bring that back. So yes, we have the better candidates. And let me tell you another reason why we have the better candidates. Because for the last, we officially launched this campaign on September 26th. Ask yourself the question. You don't have to answer me because you have to be neutral. Ask yourself the question. Between the PDM candidates and the PMP candidates, who have you heard from the most in terms of outlining to you why they want your vote and why they come for this work? We have basically presented to this country what a government is supposed to look like, what a government is supposed to do. We allow other people to talk and think, and we're not afraid to go back to the drawing board and redo it. So yes, we got the better team, and the better team is going to win come Friday.
There you have it, folks. Mr. Campaign Manager and Jazz Walkin will be back onto Uncut in very, 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 very short time, I promise. But it was very important to catch you in this season as Mr. Campaign Manager because it was important for the people to hear from you, not just you, but also to hear from PDM Campaign Manager, Mr. Ezra Taylor. It is important to understand why you guys are doing this, what is driving you, because really and truly, you guys are the driving force behind the candidates at this point. You guys are the ones who put the show together that we see on Facebook. You guys are the ones who do the work behind the scenes. You guys are the ones who are up all night toiling. Yeah. When we in our bed sleeping, when the candidates in their bed sleeping, you both are up. So we needed to get into your minds for just a moment. And I thank both of you for allowing me to get into your minds and to pick your brain a little bit. So thank you so much, Jazz.
No problem. It was my pleasure. Really, really was. And thank you for having me on your show. And I look forward to being back here in the future to discuss our first 200 days, at least check mark of the Progressive National Party.
Definitely. That sounds like a plan. I am going to schedule you in pending Friday. So when you know backing out of it now, you put yourself on the line. But thank you so much. Uncut guys, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Uncut. And I hope you guys go back to watch your favorite episodes, listen to previous episodes with candidates so that you can make an informed decision come Friday. Friday, make sure you get your ride straight from now. It's today's Wednesday. Oh, I thought today was Tuesday. It's 2 more days to go. 2 more days until election day. So get your ride. Call your MP. Call Jazz. Don't call Jazz. Call Ezra. Don't call Ezra. I don't know if you can call Ezra. But call your candidate and get your ride sorted in advance. Also, make sure you walk with your ID cards. Make sure you have your hand sanitizers. Masks are a must. And I repeat that again. Masks are a must. So don't leave your house without your mask because you will have to go back, or hopefully someone will have a spare there for you, but don't rely on that. With that being said, thank you all for tuning into another episode of Uncut, and I am your host, Walandra Elliott.